This is one of the most dangerous mistakes that people can make as they're going through an identity collapse and an identity shift. Hi, my name is Tiffany Lauren Jones. I am a cultural futurist specializing in identity evolution, and I track shifts in energy, human behavior, and culture before they become mainstream. So, what you may be experiencing is the urge to reinvent yourself really quickly. If you're going through an identity shift, you realize that the person that you used to be is no longer resonating, but you're not sure yet who it is that you're becoming. You may really feel an urgency, especially if it being the new year. If you're watching this video now in 2026 of January, you may feel an urgency to reinvent yourselves really quickly. And this is a mistake, and we'll talk about why. You also may feel pressure to claim a new label, mission, or calling. This can be dangerous as well. And a fear of being left behind is really the root of what you may be experiencing, comparing timelines to other people and their journey. These are all dangerous ways to approach your identity shift and your identity collapse. You may have this fear of being left behind, and you may start comparing yourself and your timeline to the timeline of others, but this is very dangerous. You don't want to do that because everyone's on their own journey. I know you've heard this before, but it's very true. Your process, your experiences, your beliefs, and who you're becoming is specific and uniquely you, especially as it relates to your energy, how you move through the world, your gifts, and how you're meant to show up in the process that your identity shift is taking you through. So, some of you feel spiritually oriented but disconnected from religion. Some of you feel really spiritually oriented but disconnected from religion, and that is an identity that you may be used to relying on to inform your next steps. Now, loss and absence of religion does not mean a loss and absence of faith, okay? That's a very complex conversation that I look forward to engaging in dialogue on my platform at future dates. But I do want to say that for those of you that are feeling suspicious of spirituality altogether, or you're feeling disconnected from religion, there is a reason why, because your identity is calling you to operate internally. And I believe through my own experience and the experience of my clients and the women that I work with, that God is within you, and that whatever your identity is connected to within you, your intuition, your spirituality, it's all inside of you. And anything externally is a beautiful tool to help facilitate that. But I think there's some things that are lacking in religion, which is why people are feeling disconnected from it, because it teaches us to look at the church often as our source of authority rather than learning how to go within and connect with God ourselves. So we're still feeling like something is missing. And without attacking anyone's beliefs, because that's definitely not the intention here, your personal journey with your faith and your religion is your own. But for those of you that are feeling disillusioned, are feeling guilt for questioning, or feeling a fear of being wrong, what if I'm wrong? You're really looking for some type of structure without the dogma, without the externally sourced authority. Our nervous systems really hate uncertainty, so we like looking for some type of structure to tell us who we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to show up, and we also want to know if I do X, Y, and Z, that it's going to lead me to this place. And so the ego tries to perform by stabilizing. So the ego tries to stabilize by performing this new self, which, if you've seen my other videos, performance identity is no longer acceptable in your reality. Your body is going to resist it if these videos are resonating with you, and that includes religion. Culture has really rewarded reinvention rather than integration. It tells you to become someone new and not necessarily take the lessons with you that you've already learned and embody your truth. It gives you a path, a roadmap, an outline of who to be based on how to fit in and conform into society, but not how to really navigate your own internal knowing. Religion has historically provided identity, morality, and community. And as those institutions continue to lose trust, people are left lost looking for meaning. Hunger for truth and answers didn't necessarily disappear. The structure for it did. The danger in trying to rush into adopting a new identity or relying on an external structure to create your new identity is that reinventing too early just creates another false identity. When you look outside of yourself to tell you who it is that you're meant to be, not that you can't use tools for guidance, I highly recommend that you do, but you have to acknowledge your own internal authority. When you don't, this leads to burnout, it leads to stress, it typically leads to you restarting your identity shift and collapse again and again and again. This is what happened to me for over a decade. I shifted my identity, I began making progress, and then my identity would collapse again. And I didn't understand what was happening to me at the time, but there were a few key patterns throughout my life that kept reoccurring, that were trying to get my attention, that were attached to an old identity that I just could not let go of, okay? In my videos, as we continue through the identity shift arc, so this can also lead to spiritual bypassing and collapsing cycles. As I mentioned, these patterns, it can get you to a point where you're repeating loops and you find yourself almost like living a version of your life that feels like Groundhog's Day. You're kind of having the same experiences over and over again, and you're stuck in that hallway, in that liminal space in between your old identity and the new one. And so relief is not the same as alignment. We can feel relief when we outsource our identity, outsource our authority, when someone validates or confirms and says, yes, what you're thinking, what you're feeling is correct, but that may not be the truth. So creating your internal authority and living from that place before you consider anything externally, connect with your mind, your body, your spirit, and your source first. That's the place from which you need to begin. We're in a reorganization of meaning, of what we believe in and what's important to us. It's not necessarily a collapse of morals. You don't necessarily need to replace all of your belief systems. That's not what I'm saying here. What I am saying is I want you to start noticing what restores you, what restores your sense of integrity, and what makes you feel more like yourself afterwards. Not like you're outsourcing, but something that you can feel internally. So when you do this, you have fewer false starts, a stronger internal authority, and a grounded sense of self that doesn't need external validation or constant explanation. You're allowed to build a relationship with meaning that's honest, embodied, and truly yours. If this is resonating with you, this is a larger part of an identity arc that I'm mapping here, and you're exactly where you need to be in it.